Okay, so I'm finally ready to talk about the link between USA and Atlantis. So I'm gonna do this in a way that I'm being guided by my guardian angels through this. I'm gonna recount the information that I received over time from them, and I'm gonna be picking up information as well. So basically I'm letting them guide me through this. So excuse the potential scatteredness of this video. Okay, so Atlantis, what I saw was the area that Noah was originally from. It was the hub where everyone from surrounding villages or countries, however the landscape was at that time, they would bring all of their commerce to this area. And it was a relatively harmonious place. It was a lot closer to so I'm not sure about this. I don't know if it's because the vibration of the Earth and surrounding galaxies were thinner, and like the planets were thinner, like basically aliens coming through that were seen as gods. I'm not sure if it was because something atmospheric like that, or that's just the reality of the way things were, because it was closer to the beginning of time, in the sense that what we would perceive as angels or gods or demons, because the reason I'm clarifying that is because you could be worshiping things of darkness, right? And so there was still evil that existed at this time. But anyway, so that was kind of going around at that time. So that was the old Atlantis, which has since been washed away. It's gone, but it did exist. And when Noah built his ark, the people of Atlantis and the surrounding areas helped gather all of the animals and things. There were also things of like relics of that time that were collected onto not only his ark, but also surrounding people who were also building ships. They were also building their own ways of trying to escape this. And the majority of the people of Atlantis, which is the holy people, it's somewhere around the Mediterranean, because I feel like that's one of the major reasons why Judaism, or like Jews, feel they're the holy people, is they're associated, that area is associated with Atlanteans. That's not to say that everyone who is born Jewish, I know that's their belief system, but that's not what I see. It's just because that was the area at the time. Those beings that were existing then, those souls, they have since reincarnated here and other places, and more angels have been coming in through in droves to recenter and bring us, kind of like recalibrate where we are, so that we kind of go back into the correct path. They're trying to correct the path back to God ever since the beginning of time, but especially since Atlantis occurred, and also the Jesus and some other holy people. So anyway, yeah, so the majority, I don't know, it feels like a lot of Atlanteans, in comparison to other areas, stayed put, and they were the most connected spiritually, like to God, in the sense that they had the most memory of God and the origins of our soul's process. that they maintain that faith that I don't have the desire to escape this area. I know this body will perish, and if I don't, then that is my fate, and I'm just going to stay here. I'm going to stay where my home is, where I identify as where I belong. This is my path. So yeah, Noah, I feel like he lived somewhere right outside of Atlantis, so it would be like a city that's connected to Atlantis. And he might have eventually, like, he could have been born outside of Atlantis and then moved to Atlantis. That's what I see. Something like that. So, what was that about? And why, how is the United States connected to this? Well, the way that I see it is how demonic people, I'm calling them people, but truly it's demons inhabiting bodies. It's just their choice, right? Like, they're not a demon. I'm getting confused on the message. I'll tell you what I'm hearing is, I'm hearing my guardian angel saying that some of them are, like, very rarely, like, there's very few that are true demons that exist here. And that's what I heard. So, and when I said that, I kind of got silenced. And so that's indicating to me that that's what I needed to say. And that there's no truth beyond that. That is the truth. That there are some demons that exist here. Very rarely. But that they do exist here. We can see them. They walk this earth. They belong to this earth. And when people worship them and they make that choice, then that is how they walk that path of those demons. And so they're also telling me to mention this, of how what I see is just like people's free will, the souls at some point, almost at every point, how do I describe it? It's like overall, I would say that like that, overall, the soul will always maintain free will. So like how we perceive our identity as who we are currently, like in this physical form, there are other realities where our identity is associated with lesser free will. It's almost to the will of karma and the will of destiny, the will of our path, and but ultimately, like those are the consequences of our actions, good or bad. But ultimately, we have free will. The soul does. Obviously, there's a consequence to it. Like the karma is the consequence, the reaction to the action. But that choice, they're just showing me like souls kind of walking aimlessly, like kind of floating aimlessly. And they're telling me how the souls also have a choice. They can be with God or they are against God. But there's also that gray area, that middle ground. And they're pointing me back to the Whitney Houston reading I just did, where they're saying she's a good example of where she was walking the gray path. She was consistently going through these karmic cycles of this perception of being possessed, of being cursed, that she was relinquishing her free will, like bending it to the desires of evil entities. And so for these past, since she passed away up until sometime around recently when I did this reading, she was walking this gray area where something was changing within her spirit. Something was changing within her perception of things. And I think that liberation truly started because of her daughter passing, because of her daughter even existing together in this lifetime that we know them as. And what happened there is that freed up her, like, soul's mind in a way. I'm saying it that way because the soul doesn't technically have, it's sentient, but anyway, because it's all in one. Like, as a human, we have different, the way I see humans is like different categories of who we are. But anyway, so what happened is she was in this gray area, and during this gray area where she's not choosing heaven or hell or God or evil, Satan, she was just kind of observing and deciding, and in some ways not really deciding, just kind of there. And it wasn't until some spiritual person, okay, some spiritual guru or psychic or whatever kind of medium or some seance or something that someone was doing recently, or like bringing her up, like talking about her again, or like some reason she was coming up again by a similar person that was talking about her in the past. And this person is evil, and it just it woke her up. It made her spirit aware. It's like distance gave her that awareness. This healing that she was having on the other side was giving her this awareness. So the longer that she existed on the other side from here, the more that she was able to see things from a different perspective. And that's when she said, hold on, something's not right here, and I'm choosing the light. I'm choosing God. I'm choosing goodness. I'm choosing that freedom, true freedom. So they're just wanting me to point that out because that's significant to all of this here. And so bringing to the United States and the creation of the United States and how it's significant to Atlantis is because these demons work in processes of hundreds of years, like sections of years, like 300 to 500 years, I feel. And then they break it down into 100 years and then 50 years. Usually not less than that. Those are just kind of like the details in the smaller thing, because it takes generations to create and also manipulate the mind. It's speeding up a little bit more now, but not by much, like down to like 90 years versus like 150 or something. So they have been able to break it down a lot faster, which is a good or bad thing, I don't know. But so what they had decided was there needs to be, like, they had this information, like they carried this information beyond Atlantis, that there would be, like, this would occur. Like, they knew that this was going to occur. This was in God's plan. So they wanted to intervene and kind of hijack God's plan, which in truth it can never actually happen. But that's just the nature of evil. They try. They want to play God. So they're going to try. But they tried to hide this information and use it to their advantage so that they could be the rulers of the world and essentially keep the energy of the world down, bring it back down. And then, you know, with Jesus coming in, and that was kind of a divine intervention. I'm skipping over all of this because I'm trying to get up to where I'm trying, but I need to give you the background of what I'm seeing, because that's what they're telling me to do. But it originated somewhere around like these empires in Asia is kind of what it feels like Middle East Asia. Like back when, like, the world looked different, the countries, the landscape looked different, but that's where these demons were, and they were white, like they looked like Caucasian people, like white people, and then they branched off, but still were connected, like they were branched off to Britain, basically. And so I'm trying to just kind of fast forward us, and so let's bring us all the way to George Washington. Before, prior to George Washington even being born, they were getting intel of the United States, and there were spiritualists who were pointing them to this direction. Like, this is it. This is the new landscape. Like, there's something there. It's very significant. And so they started trying to bring all of their efforts to the United States, and they were concerned because other countries were also having similar ideas. And so the demons that were ruling in Britain, that are connected to Asia, China, ancient China, they were trying to intercept it ahead of time, get ahead of things, and they're very powerful already at this time. So here comes the birth of George Washington, and they chose George Washington because he was very ordinary. And by ordinary, he came from an ordinary background. And this ordinary background allowed them to manipulate him into believing that he was special, which in truth, he was a very special person. But they wanted to play upon his young mind, his ego, in order to control him, because he was someone who was a very particular child, a very particular person. He wanted things a certain way. He was a very obedient person. He was obedient in the sense, like, he still had that boyish, mischievous side, but ultimately, it's like he enjoyed authority, is what I'm saying. He enjoyed authority and structure. He enjoyed authority and structure. And so there were people who observed him. It was like British intelligence had already been aware of him and his family somehow, and they brought him into parties, is what I'm saying, like hoity-toity parties, and molested and raped him. they were using this child, pedophiles, they were using him, and they manipulated him into believing that he enjoyed it, and that, again, he was special, and he was chosen, and that he was important, and that he would do all of these very important secret things, working for British intelligence. And so they raised him essentially to follow a path, a work, like a field that would give him the upper hand in the landscape of the area. And from there, he would be able to connect with all types of people. So this is this imposing figure on slaves, and force them to respect him, and then smooching up to Native Americans so that he would find out information from them so they could eventually take their land and replace it with plantations and bring in more slaves, and to find Native Americans that are corrupt so that they would work for them and take out other Native Americans, other Indians, and those tribes, so for their own benefit, which in turn helped. I'm gonna keep calling him British intelligence because that's who I see him working for. And then basically as they accumulated more land and more power and more money, they already understood that what we need to do beyond this is not only establish a connection to the people in the area, but to establish this idea that we would be liberated from the monarchy, from the king or whatever, the queen, because that would be the only way to collectively have control over this area, is to have a different mindset, because everyone started kind of separating themselves, is what I'm seeing. Like, they weren't unified. Like, some people were against the queen, some of them were for the queen, some of them were just wanting to do their own thing. They didn't want to be a part of any of that. They were just a third party and fourth and fifth. And then there are other countries that were coming in to invade different parts of the United States. And so that is the plan that they cooked up, and they used George Washington to push this agenda out there. And so originally what I see is that this wasn't working. George was recruiting people around him. They were making these different wars and everything. And basically what this was supposed to do was prove to them that they, again, playing God, that they would be responsible for this, and that they were important, and that they are, this is a way for them. In truth, the deepest truth, the most secretive truth, is that they were honoring a demon. That's truly what this was about. So anyway, basically this was not working out, because the people that he was trying to gather, I guess these are the other founding fathers, they all had their differences of opinion. Some were on the same side as George Washington. Like, I think like very few were on the same side as George Washington, like maybe three in total, if that, were British intelligence as well. But the other ones just kind of have their own selfish motives, which ultimately anyone who is of evil has their own selfish motives, and if they had the opportunity to play the ultimate god beyond the demon that they're worshiping, then they would. So it never actually really gets along. They don't actually really get along. But anyway, so there was someone, he's on a quarter, or not a quarter, but he's on a dollar coin. Monroe. Because the reason I'm bringing him up is because I saw, before I was doing this reading, I had these coins that I had to the side, and I felt really drawn to these coins. And I had two that were Maya Angelou quarters, and then one that was the Monroe. And I could feel the energy coming from this, or like from my guardian angels, and saying like he was true to his word, and having this symbolism of Maya Angelou on either side of his coin was a representation that he truly wanted the liberation of slavery. And these other people, especially George Washington, loved the idea of slavery. He was riddled this, and I see just like so many holes on his face. So the way that I see him, he has a lot of like divots in his face, and they're kind of showing me a parallel to those divots in his face, like craters, as like craters of his being. Like he's just like crooked and through and through and through. There was not a good thing about him, not an honorable thing about him. He was very motivated for evil. So anyway, yeah, so basically that's what I saw. I don't know, I'm kind of getting shocked because my other bird's out there screaming. But long story short about this is there is a plan to destroy the United States. And this is because they're using people the slaves, right? We are modern day slaves to them. They had this plan set forth that as they conquered the United States and created this false belief that we are united on one single front, they were hoping, number one, they didn't plan for the rapid repopulation of people, and the intelligence, the sheer intelligence, and the drive, the soul drive, and I mean like really that true passion in people to persevere. They underestimated that, and so all of the laws that were set forth from them, because they were short-sighted about things, and also good-intentioned people, it was used against them to reinstate the true value of what they're saying. So even though it's kind of like, well, I said it, but I didn't mean it, and so people are holding them accountable to those laws. I think you guys are following what I'm saying. So basically they had a plan that they were going to destroy America as this symbolic, it's like this symbolic symbolism that we destroyed Atlantis. Like we can create, then destroy it. And that's in a way playing God. And there's this practice that's happening here in this world that parallels to a very close galaxy. It's like right beside us. And so what happens here directly affects this galaxy right beside us. And so there's a connectedness to that. So if they could achieve this, then they're achieving something on that other dimension, like that galaxy. But I'm saying it's a galaxy, but I'm interchanging the words because it's how I see it. So it's like they gain knowledge and power, and it's like this is the petri dish or whatever. Not the petri dish, but like they're the scientific experiment. And if they can implement it here, then they can more easily implement it in this very close galaxy. Like something's going on over there. So, channeling demons, I guess, bringing them forth here, probably. And so, yeah, because what the United States is supposed to symbolize is that in an idealistic fashion, which couldn't really exist currently in the state that things are and the way that people are in their own choices, it's not as pure, obviously. I'm not going to say it's not as pure. It's our choices that are dictating this, but it's not as harmonious as it is during the time of Atlantis. Those people, even though there were negative things occurring, it was not to the degree that it is currently. I would, what it feels like now would compare to that coming of Christ. That is this feeling that I get as far as the way that human nature is dictating the things that are going on in this world. And I talked about this in my last video about how I've seen these visions and I'm aware to different capacities of what happens as far as like human interference on world events and natural disasters. And while natural disasters do occur without human intervention, a lot of what's currently happening is dictated, is controlled, it is manufactured. It is not because of what we're doing, and that's just a consequence of that. This is something that is intentionally done in order to cause chaos, in order to cause confusion, in order to harm people, intentionally harm people because they enjoy it to some degree. And yeah, just all kinds of different reasons that it would be difficult to pinpoint every single one in just one sentence, obviously. And so what they're doing here currently with the United States is they're attacking from the inside out. And so they're re-infiltrating from the inner borders and dismantling the United States piece by piece. And the effects of that will be seen. It'll be the downfall of it looks, I'm trying to see, it's like the entire world except for one little area is what it looks like. Like one little area. It's the downfall except for one little area. And yeah, that's about it that I want to say about this right now. Honestly, that's all I have to say about that right now. So that is the link between the United States and Atlantis. Bye.